Diontae Johnson, though, injured in this game. Hamstring injury is going to keep him out multiple weeks, which the timeline is interesting because multiple weeks, Tomlin's only rolled him out for this upcoming week. But we got Cleveland, the Las Vegas Raiders, Houston Texans, the Ravens, and then you have the bye. If he doesn't, say it is a few and not a couple weeks, like say, let's go based off the words used here and say it is a few, which would mean 3 games, then would you bring him back even for that Ravens game? Or because they have the bye the following week, like how do you think the Steelers handle him? And then the second part of this, there's a lot of people within Steelers Nation that don't appreciate Diontae Johnson. They don't have a solution within their offense. It's going to be Calvin Austin that sees the jump in playing time. He doesn't replicate that skill set at all. I think people are really going to miss what Diontae Johnson brings to the field, even when he's not the one getting the ball, just his ability to create for other guys.
Yeah, and I feel like they're going to miss that crisp route running. They're going to miss somebody that can get open with ease. And as far as his health goes, if we're getting into that Ravens game and he's not 100% healthy, then I would just hold him out again. And this is all very situational. We have no idea what the next few games are going to look like.
Could it depend on where the team's at? Like, say they lose to Cleveland, but then win the next 2.
Yeah, that could change things. But I tend to say that if he's not 100% healthy, I wouldn't mess with it. I don't want him to re-aggravate it. Is the main thing I would look at. I think that the bigger time off would be pretty valuable for healing up that hamstring, because hamstrings that's just something that's so finicky. Like one play you could re-aggravate it and you're out another like 4 weeks. So I personally would probably hold him out unless he's like 100% cleared, like he's not going to re-aggravate this injury, which you can't guarantee, but like you can play at 100% and feel that.
Yeah. I think he's so integral to what they want to do. Like if he can go, he's going to have to go. And maybe I would feel differently if, they do rattle off wins here against Cleveland, Vegas, and Houston, and they're 3-1 before the Ravens, and then that bye week. I just feel like, and they're not going, like, if he can go, if he's 100%, then he's going to go. But I don't think he will unless he is. Like, I don't even think it's a question. Like, if he plays, it's because he is 100%. I don't think that they would mess with it otherwise. So if we see him out there, whenever that is, I'm assuming it's because he's back completely full health, been cleared, and they don't feel like there's a chance, obviously, that he could re-aggravate all, especially with hamstrings. Like I remember, this is me trying to put myself into the shoes now of a professional athlete. I pulled my hamstring playing softball. Okay. Not on a football field like Diontae Johnson playing softball. I ended up like re-pulling it 2 times within the next 2 months. Like once you pull that hamstring once, it keeps going.
Yeah.
So they really got to be careful with this. It's so tricky. These soft tissue things, they're so annoying. But he's definitely going to be missed within that offense. And I have no clue what the offensive game plan is going to be here versus Cleveland, who just shut down the Cincinnati Bengals in a much, in my opinion, better receiving core. I think the potential's certainly there with Pittsburgh, but as of right now, I mean, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, who had a goose egg, 0 receptions on 8 targets for T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I mean, that's to me as good of a group as there is in the NFL. And Cleveland with Martin Emerson, with Denzel Ward, and with Greg Newsome held those guys in check. So very tall task for the Pittsburgh Steelers receivers. And again, Kenny Pickett to get back on track in this one, because you're talking about the Steelers who probably couldn't be lower right now, and Cleveland who's riding an absolute high.
Yeah, and I'll say that, you mentioned Calvin Austin, his snaps are going to be elevated from this, and he'll benefit from this injury. I think that Pat Freiermuth may also benefit from this, just getting the targets. But I feel like George Pickens and Allen Robinson are going to hurt from it because there's not going to be that threat of Diontae Johnson on the field, so those two can get focused on more.
George is going to see the double teams, I think. I think he's going to see Denzel Ward and then a safety over top. So I would anticipate that happening. He's going to have to be able to win those matchups sometimes, though, in order to create for other guys. So we're really about to find, the people that think that he is the number one, even when Diontae Johnson's out there, his time's now to go and prove it. But Yeah, the Pat Fryermuth thing is interesting too because I feel like it's the same conversation that we had last year when we traded Chase Claypool, where it's like who's going to be the big beneficiary here. I do agree. Like I already thought we were going to see a good amount of Darnell Washington in a game with these elite edge rushers like Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith that they have on the other side in Cleveland. But now, especially without Diontae Johnson, I think that's the case because I think Allen Robinson's going to shift to the outside receiver. You're going to see Calvin Austin play some slot, but I think Pat Fryermuth is going to be like the actual slot receiver, number one option.
You might see some situations where they just say screw it and put him in the slot. He's not leaving from the line. He's actually just standing out there, and maybe that's a situation where you have another tight end coming to block like Washington. So I think that'll be interesting to see how the receiving room handles this because I mean this is a true test because like you and I both know and a lot of Steeler fans both know, but a lot of Steeler fans don't agree that like Diontae Johnson is still wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh. So they lost their wide receiver 1 in our opinion. So it's that's unfortunate. It's going to be an even tougher task for the offense moving forward.
They also lost their defensive captain, one of their 2 defensive captains, but the most tenured guy, Cam Heyward here, 8 weeks potentially having groin surgery. This, I mean, for a team that was already, they got gashed in the run game again. I mean, this is going on a few years now where this team has had trouble stopping the run. And now you lose Cam Heyward as well, not to mention what he offers as a pass rusher. This guy's gotten better. He's been better in his 30s than he was in his late 20s. So it goes without saying that his absence is going to be noticeable. I feel like with the defensive line depth they've built up, they're probably better equipped to handle this loss this year to Cam than they were last year to TJ. When you're talking about losing one of those 2 guys they have each of the last 2 years after the opener, which is just so frustrating and annoying. The plan to me, and I don't know that this is what the Steelers are going to do. I don't necessarily think it will because I don't know that they want to throw a rookie into the fire, would be to play Keanu Benton at 3-tech in Cam's spot, have him be the starter, give Fehoko a helmet, and let him kind of be able to eat those double teams in the middle to have your linebackers play a little bit more clean because the linebackers, like I said, with lack of a better word, they sucked. They were awful on Sunday. And I think a big part of that is similarly to last year. Obviously, there's the communication aspect of things, but also like they weren't they can't take on these pulling guards or guys that are climbing to the second level. Like Fehoko can hopefully keep these guys clean, and against Nick Chubb, just let them focus on him and coming downhill. So that to me would be the plan. But what I think it's going to be is like a lot of the Marvin Leal, I think Armin Watts maybe gets a helmet too. Maybe Isaiah Loudermilk, but I would be trial by fire with Keanu Benton, giving him a ton of snaps.
I mean, you drafted him in the second round for a reason, right? I feel like you should play him. I think he has the pedigree for it. I agree with you. I would play Keanu Benton, and whether they want to bring up and give Fehoko a hat and put him at 0, I think that Keanu Benton should get the first looks at playing that 3 technique and just taking over for Cam Heyward's spot. I think that it would be a good test for a rookie, and some of these guys, they're going to play well by getting more playing time. So I feel like when you get those snaps and you get that in-game experience, that can be very valuable to these young players. And with someone as talented as we think Keanu Benton is, I think he could excel in this role with more snaps. And so I agree with you that that's what I would do as far as a plan. But I also agree with you where I think it's going to be more like a committee of multiple guys going in on the defensive line. Not necessarily just Keanu Benton, but you're going to see multiple guys filling in to make up for that role. Kind of similar to what we've seen other positions do in the past when someone of that level has gone out. It's just unfortunate and it's so unlucky. And I get it. Like the Steelers aren't the only team to suffer injuries. Like totally not. I mean, look at what happened to the Jets just last night. But I mean, back-to-back years, you're losing someone like the 2 best players in back-to-back years have a serious injury on your defensive front. I mean, that's just unfortunate for the Steelers defense as a whole. Last year was TJ, this year is Cam. I mean, we were talking about how valuable Cam was last week and how big of a game we thought he was going to have against the 49ers. But even at his age, he's still one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. He's one of the best defensive players on the Steelers, and he's just so valuable, not only just on the field, but in that locker room. So that's something that's going to be missed, not just for on-field performance, but you're missing a leader in the locker room now. And obviously he's going to be on the field still, I would anticipate, but it's just not going to be quite the same that it would be when he's dressed in pads.
So I wanted to pull this up real quick. If you're watching on YouTube, I have it on the screen. We mentioned like 0 tech and 3 tech, and some people might be like, what are they talking about here? That's just where we're talking about defensive linemen lining up. So as you can see, 0 tech plays right over the center. And then as you start to go out towards the tackles, and then Y is in inline tight end in this scenario. So 0 tech out to 7. 7 is obviously like where TJ would be playing. Keanu Benton, I think the reason the Steelers liked him so much, he could play from 0 probably all the way out to 5, to be quite honest with you, for sure out to 4. But I don't know that we're going to see him play out past 3 this year. Yeah, it is interesting just because we've seen Cam actually not that great playing in a 0 tech or even 1 tech. Like he's obviously his best as a 3 tech. If Keanu's able to do it, they might actually have even more of a versatile player there than what Cam offers them. Obviously not to the quality that he plays at 3 tech. But yeah, I wanted to pull this graphic up just to show you guys exactly what we're talking about when we say 0 tech and 3 tech and stuff like that. So, I would assume we see Fehoko as that 0 tech, as you guys can see on the screen. That's pretty much exclusively what he is. He's not going to give you anything against the pass either. Like he's not going to give you any pass rush juice.
He's going to swallow everything up inside. That's what he's built to do.
And then you'll see Benton, somewhere between that 2I and 3, I would assume. So I hope he sees an increase in snaps for sure. I think he's going to have to. I don't know what exactly the plan is there. And again, when you talk about Cam Heyward for the defense, Diontae Johnson for the offense, I actually don't know which one is more important, to be quite honest with you. And I say that because I trust more what Omar Khan built up with the defensive line depth than I do what else is in that receiver room right now. At least from like the different flavors that you have. Like, again, you don't have anything close to Diontae Johnson's skill set within that receiver room without him. I think it's a toss-up, and I also think you're talking about a top 2 or 3 player from each side as well that's going to be missing for at least the next few weeks.
Absolutely. I think I will lean Diontae Johnson, and maybe that is just a bias from what I saw from the offense in week 1. I think that the Steelers are more equipped to deal with a Cam Heyward injury than they are a Diontae Johnson injury. And I say that because kind of like what you were saying, like the Steelers in-house do not have somebody that is going to replicate what Diontae Johnson does. And I don't think that there's anybody better to help out a quarterback that struggled in week 1 than someone who can get open so easily for you in week 2. But you're not going to have that. Like nobody on the Steelers as of right now can get open like Diontae could. And that makes easy passes and builds more confidence for your quarterback. Kenny's going to be missing that. And now a lot of it could be more contested catches and be more difficult on the quarterback. That's why I would lean Diontae. But either way, I mean, like you said, you're missing a top 2 to 3 player on either side of the ball. It's a crappy situation to be in just after 1 game of this season.
And they came into the season relatively healthy. I mean, outside of Corey Trice Jr. being out for the year and then Larry Ogunjobi dealing with the foot thing, like right up, we didn't even know if he was going to play on Sunday. They were healthy coming into the season. And then in 1 game, you lose Diontae Johnson and Cam Heyward for multiple weeks. And then who knows, Chuk suffered a concussion late. Pat Freiermuth's dealing with the chest. James Daniels and Miles Boykin wearing boots. Like, what the heck, man? Not only did they lose on the scoreboard, they just got legitimately beat up in this game, like bullied start to finish by the 40.